Hello, my name is Parker Hague, and this is my interview speech. I will be interviewing for the software developer position at Apple. For my educational background, I'll first discuss my schooling. I've got a minor in management information systems, and I'm about to have my bachelor's degree in computer science. I'm also working on my master's degree in computer science with a focus in machine learning and deep neural networks and convolutional networks. This is important because Apple requires that their software developers have a bachelor's degree in computer science, though they prefer a master's degree. Now I'll discuss some of my relevant coursework. Operating systems was one of the most important classes that I took for this job at Oklahoma State. Operating systems taught me the basics such as multi-threading, multiprocessing, inter-process communication, and process synchronization. The primary programming language that we had to use in this class was C. This is important because Apple requires that their developers have prior knowledge of C, C++, or Objective-C in order to work for them. Another really important class that I took was data structures and algorithm analysis. This class taught me the basics of calculating time complexity and understanding the differences of different sorting algorithms and data structures and the time complexity of their various operations. Another important class that I took was database administration. This class taught me how to work with SQL and SQL Server Management Studio, as well as how to understand entity relational diagrams and how to do good table design for a database. One of the other most important classes I took at Oklahoma State was my data communications class. This class taught me how to set up network infrastructure, as well as how to set up various servers such as a web server, DHCP, RDP, SMTP, and DNS, all via virtual machines. This class was very important because Apple requires that their developers have a strong understanding of the Unix operating system, which this course gave me. A few honorable mentions of my courses at Oklahoma State would be my math courses, as well as my machine learning, computer systems, and my hacking and cybersecurity course. Now, I'd like to discuss my resume and some of the various things on it. The first thing I want you to notice at the top of my resume is the URL to parkerhague.com. This is a personal website that I've made that I'm hosting from a web server at my house. I use this website as a means of a web resume that's a better resume than the one I'm showing you now, as well as a means of providing links to my GitHub repository, as well as some of the personal apps that I want to show off. Now I'll briefly go into my education since I talked about that in the last question. But I've got my minor in management information systems, and I'm working on my bachelor's degree in computer science and my master's degree in computer science. I should have my bachelor's degree in May of this coming year and my master's degree next May. My GPA for each degree is 3.89 and 4.0 respectively. Now I'll briefly cover some of my technical skills. The first one that I wanted to mention is object-oriented programming. This is the primary style of programming that I've done, and it is what I prefer. The languages that are namely are Java and C#. I also wanted to mention my understanding of the Angular front-end framework. This is my primary framework that I use for web development at my job. Another thing I wanted to mention is neural networks with TensorFlow. This is done through Python, and I have a great understanding of how to implement these neural networks as well as convolutional and deep networks using TensorFlow, as well as implementing them with vanilla Python. Another thing I thought it was important to mention was my understanding of how to implement and use REST APIs. I've implemented several of these APIs at my job, and I have a good understanding of how to implement them. And this is important because Apple requires that their developers know how to implement these APIs. The next thing I wanted to cover is some of my projects that I've done. I've made a personal iOS drinking app that was actually on the iOS App Store for a year. This was just a fun little independent project that I made. I kind of just did it because I thought it would be a fun app that I could get my friends to play. The app that I'm actually more proud of is my data converter that is a web application. About 4 semesters ago, I was taking computer systems and I was constantly having to do all these conversions from kilobytes to megabytes and from gigabytes to petabytes, bytes to kilobytes, etc. And I noticed that there just weren't really any good data converters on the internet, none that I was happy with. So I made my own, and I believe I have the best data converter on the internet. So anyway, I provided a link to that, but it's an app that I like to use, and I'm really proud of it. Lastly, I'd like to go over some of my experience. So I don't have a ton of industry experience, but I've been in the industry for about a year now. I started last May. I got an internship as a full stack developer at Hobby Lobby Corporate in Oklahoma City. During this internship, I had my own summer project where I had an app that was my own that I had to work on. In this case, I made a new app that is a tool that the warehouse workers can use during their day. At the end of this internship, I had to give a presentation to the entire technology department about it. And shortly after, a couple weeks after, I actually was able to put the app into production. So the app is live and being used right now by employees, which is pretty cool. At the end of my internship, I was actually offered a part-time job, and that's what I'm doing now. So right now I'm finishing school and working part-time at Hobby Lobby during the week. I have several hobbies that I enjoy on a given day or week. The first one that I'll talk about is reading. So lately I've been reading a lot. I've been rereading the Harry Potter series, actually. I haven't read them since I was in elementary school, and I'm currently on the 4th book. I'm having a lot of fun rediscovering them as an adult. Another thing that I like to do a lot is go to the gym. It's something I've been doing since middle school, and it just always makes my day better and puts me in a good mood. I really like to go. If I don't get to go, it kind of throws my day off. Another thing I wanted to mention, if this isn't obvious, is I really enjoy programming in my free time and personal programming projects. I already mentioned Lower Higher, the iOS drinking game that I made, and I mentioned the web application that I made, the data converter. Another one that I'm working on right now, I'm calling Concert Collection, and it's just an app that can manage and record all the concerts that I go to. So another hobby that I have is going to concerts. I like to go to a lot of concerts. I go to like 5 to 7 a year, and it gets hard to manage these concerts and remember what artists you've seen and where you saw them and when you saw them. So I'm making this app that can basically tell me who I've seen, when I saw that artist, how many times I've seen a certain artist at a certain location, or I can select a location and it'll tell me all the artists that I saw at that location. So it's basically just a fun way to manage, the concerts that I've been to. But I think this is really important because Apple wants people working for them that are passionate about what they do and people that are willing to innovate and come up with new ideas. And I think the fact that I love programming in my free time and coming up with new apps kind of proves that I'm passionate about it and it's something that I'm willing to do for the company. So